Soon after dawn on the 18th, an increasing tempo of German artillery and mortar fire announced the arrival of the anticipated counterattack. Fresh companies of Panzer Grenadiers and Pioneers, supported by Panzer IVs, moved up the slopes from Fontenay.
Dimanche le 18 Sunday the 18th of June, refugees arrive. They are surprised to find Englishmen. A child has been killed by a shell. The English bring in one wounded. 4 English soldiers wander about, looking for their unit. The English tanks are still immobile, without life. There is thunder from guns. The English ambulance does not arrive.
At 14:15 hours, we began sparse fire attack with our heavy weapons. Our attack started well through a knee-high grain field. The spearheads of the company had already reached the wood and were in hand-to-hand combat with the British, who were dug in there, spades against machetes. Following the intense shelling, the British watched and waited from the tree line of the densely wooded park as the Germans weaved their way forward towards them through the corn. The British opened fire and managed to halt the Germans in the centre, but they became flanked on both sides. The Dukes put up a gallant effort, but 2 of the front companies were completely overrun and fell back in disorder. Some of our infantry ran through the orchard looking fearfully behind them. When tanks and infantry of the Panzer Lehr Division moved forward behind the mortar attacks, many of the British infantry fled. The 6 Dukes were gradually pushed back until only 1 company remained in the woods. The carrier platoon was surrounded and fought to the last man. Large numbers fell back from the woods in disorder. At this point, the 7 Dukes were committed to the action and they managed to reclaim the woods. In the end, the Germans retreated, but the heart had been torn out of the 6 Dukes. They had lost over 250 men in their first battle.
Pourquoi les Anglais ont-ils abandonné leurs chars dans le pré? Why have the English abandoned the tanks in the meadow? Shelling is terrible, again throughout the night. The refugees leave again at dawn. Parts of the castle wall have collapsed under the shell fire. The 4 Tommies who were looking for their units yesterday slept in the horse stable, while the wounded Englishman has bedded down in our shelter, waiting for an ambulance which does not come. Ambulance qui n'arrive pas.
On the 19th of June, the 6 Dukes were pulled back to Audriot to recuperate. The Germans had retreated south to Fontenay but resisted all attacks aimed at the village. With morale and numbers falling, Lieutenant Colonel Exham was switched to another command, and Lieutenant Colonel A.J.D. Turner from the Suffolk Regiment took his place.
Lundi le 19 juin, Monday the 19th of June. The English tanks have not moved. At 3 o'clock, Barassi arrives to tell us that the Germans are withdrawing from the lime kilns. There are now no Germans between Boislonde and Fontenay. The shelling would again be terrible. If the Germans ever came back to Boislonde, they would find the wounded Englishman in the cellar and we would all be shot. In the evening there is renewed terrible shelling. Mercredi le 21 juin. Wednesday the 21st of June. A civilian who has passed through the lines arrives. He tells us that people on the other side of the front are out in the fields making hay. This baffles us, as we have been buried in our cellar for 15 days without being able to go outside. Suddenly, an English officer arrives. He salutes, takes off his helmet and tells us we are in great danger. They are going to start a major attack and are going to lead us away from the park. Within moments, everyone has a small parcel in their hands. We leave the cellar, 41 people. Except for some trees, nothing remains other than enormous craters. At the exit to the park, English soldiers surround us. There are burnt-out tanks and cars, dead soldiers are everywhere. It is there we see the skeleton of our beautiful horse, Admiral.
On the 25th of June, the Royal Scots Fusiliers led the 49th Infantry in the attack on Fontenay and the waiting German units. Lieutenant Colonel Turner led what was left of the 6 Dukes in support on the flanks. The attack was successful, but the 6 Dukes suffered more casualties and their morale was at rock bottom.
Dimanche le 25 juin. Sunday, the 25th of June. All attempts to return to the chateau fail. The battle near Fontenay makes it impossible to approach.
On the 30th of June 1944, Lieutenant Colonel Turner sent a report to General Montgomery. He stressed that in just 14 days, the 6 Dukes had suffered 350 casualties in the ordinary ranks and were left with only 12 of their original officers, all junior. Nearly all of their transport, equipment and documents had been destroyed. Leadership was weak since all the company commanders had been killed and half the battalion did not know each other. He said that over 3/4 of the men had shell shock and were generally unfit to take their place in the line. It is no longer a battalion, he said, but a collection of individuals. There is no esprit de corps for those who are frightened to fall back on. The report was not received favourably, and Lieutenant Colonel Turner was immediately sacked by Montgomery.
Lundi le 3 juillet. Monday the 3rd of July. Our second journey to Boislonde. The chateau is nothing but a huge pile of smoking bricks. We learned the English had mined the chateau and blown it up on Saturday. Nothing remains for me except a medallion and a photo of our Château de Boislonde. Je vous souhaite, mes filles, la chance d'élever vos propres familles dans un foyer chrétien en toute tranquillité d'esprit.
On the 17th of August 1944, what was left of the 6 Dukes arrived back in the UK. My dad, Ted Ostler, was sent to the Westwood Hospital in Bradford for suspected shell shock. In October 1944, he was transferred to the Royal Welsh Fusiliers and sent to the Ardennes, where, in the new year of 1945, he was hit in the leg by shrapnel during the Battle of the Bulge.
In the cold grey light of the 6th of June, in the year of 44, the Empire Lark sailed out from Pole to join with thousands more, the largest fleet the world had seen. We sailed in close array, and we set our course for Normandy at the dawning of the day. There was not one man in all our crew but knew what lay in store, for we had waited for that day through 5 long years of war. We knew that many would not return, but all our hearts were true, for we were bound for Normandy, where we had a job to do. For every hero's name that's known, 1,000 died as well. On stakes and wires their bodies hung, rocked in the ocean swell. And many a mother wept that day for the sons they loved so well. Men who cracked a joke and cadged the smoke as they stormed the gates of hell. As the years pass by, I can still recall the men I saw that day. who died upon that blood-soaked sand, where now sweet children play. And those of you who were unborn, who've lived in liberty, remember those who made it so on the shores of Normandy.